Man, live your life if that's how you want to do it. But once you come over here and I tell you what mine is, you can't get mad at me.
Now, that right there, of course, was Steve Harvey. However, the one thing that people are talking about is not exactly what Steve Harvey said, which, by the way, we'll get to, but what Jerry Seinfeld said.
You just expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. Mm-hmm. When you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke, well, that's the end of your comedy.
Thing right there about scripts, I'm going to be bringing that up at the very, very end of the film. And trust me, when you guys see the very, very end of this video, when I bring it up, it'll all make sense to you. And I wanted to do a much, much larger video on the death of comedy and how it was that the left absolutely destroyed comedy. However, I've decided to take a different approach with this video here. We're definitely going to be talking about how it is that the left destroyed comedy. However, seeing how it is that Drea De Matteo, the girl who played Adriana on the show The Sopranos, she recently decided to come out and go on Don Jr.'s podcast and basically tell the entire world this
fundraisers with the Hollywood elite. Former Soprano star Drea De Matteo is actually calling out A-listers, saying that Hollywood elites are actually, quote, petrified to speak out against Joe Biden's leftist agenda. Watch.
This administration has just been hammering all of these things, and people in Hollywood are petrified. What are you going to speak out against race and sex and all of that stuff? People are afraid to have those conversations because, first of all, you never win with a liberal. Yeah. You're just never going to win.
I know it was a Fox News intro, but still at the same time, given the fact that she chose to say that, it makes people wonder exactly what's going on in Tinseltown. Now, most of you guys clicked on this video and you probably thought, okay, well, we're going to be talking about comedy and how the left and political correctness absolutely destroyed comedy. And that right there is true. And don't worry, I'll get to that in a second. But I want to talk a lot more, not so much about how it was they destroyed comedy, but more along the lines of what exactly is happening in that town that is keeping a lot of people, according to De Matteo, quiet. Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Cancel culture affects these actors a lot more than it does anybody else, or at least they believe that it affects them a lot more than anybody else because, let's be honest, they're actors. It's a great big giant vanity project. They're obsessed with themselves. Do you guys remember during COVID when these people decided to suddenly do this Instagram type video where it's like Ellen DeGeneres and Gal Gadot and Aaron Paul, the guy who played Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad, decided to basically sing Imagine. And of course, they were singing this inside their very, very nice, wealthy homes. Do you remember when Nancy Pelosi decided that she would go on, I think it was James Corden, and tell everybody exactly what she was getting through the pandemic with all the, let's just say all the 3 to 4 figure brands of ice cream that she was eating. You see, the point was this right here. During 2020, these people showed you that they were not really and truly one of you, as much as these people tried to go out of their way to tell you that they were, in fact, suffering through the pandemic, when in reality, they obviously were not suffering through the pandemic, even though they were mostly living in California. They still had their high-tech homes. They still had their own personal freedoms, and they could still basically do whatever they wanted, even though a good portion of the country was under the illusion that they could not do so themselves unless they wore a mask. Some people, quite frankly, were just ballsy and didn't really care. Like myself, for example, I didn't wear a mask not one single time during 2020. Now, you're probably thinking, well, maybe it's because you live in the state. No. The state of North Carolina, we had a governor. We still have that same governor, Roy Cooper. We used to call him King Roy and Roy Pooper because he thought it was a good idea to basically keep the state locked down, and he took forever to open up. What he would do is he would come out every 2 weeks and say, well, we're going to open up, and then it wouldn't open up, and then basically it was just a great big giant hurry up and wait type thing because this guy was obviously obsessed with power. I still can't figure out how it was that Roy Cooper got reelected. But of course, he's not the topic of this video. The topic of this video is obviously a comedian coming out and telling the truth about woke Hollywood and how it was that the left destroyed comedy. It's also to talk about not just that, but it's also to talk about what it is that is going on, where some people have came out and said that there's actually actors and actresses that are afraid to come out and actually say something about what's going on. But we'll get to that here soon. Jerry Seinfeld, by the way, this was not the first time that Jerry Seinfeld pointed out that the radical left had, for the most part, destroyed comedy. He pretty much hinted at this. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the other half of that Sky News segment.
It's not the first time he's called out the left's toxic influence on comedy. He previously spoke out against the complaint that there's too many white men on TV, particularly on his programs.
I have noticed that most of the guests are mostly white males. Of 22 episodes that you've had.
Yeah, let's get into that.
No, but you
Take a look over here, Peter. What do you see? A lot of whiteys. What's going on here? Oh, this really pisses me off. But go ahead. It really pisses me off. People think it's the census or something. I mean, this has got to represent the actual pie chart of America. Who cares? It's just funny. You know, funny is the world that I live in. You're funny, I'm interested. You're not funny, I'm not interested.
Oh, before somebody comes in here and says that Jerry Seinfeld voted for this, him being a New Yorker, he's always been very, very much on the liberal side. I want to go ahead and say this right here. He did. Everything that he's going through right now, he kind of, to a certain degree, kind of asked for. There's also another very interesting clip that I want to say was shared earlier this morning about, let's just say something that he had said in the past when it came to political correctness.
About people that can't think. The stupid mistakes I see people making sometimes, offensive, unnecessary insensitivities. It's like, you know, pick up a paper, find out what's going on, and then just navigate around.
Well, Jerry, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to take a wild guess and say that Jerry was trying to be politically correct with that particular take, but still at the same time, though, it seems to me like a lot of people are beginning to turn on this whole cancel culture thing. But once again, I would not be surprised if a couple of weeks from now, these people weren't suddenly apologizing once again to the woke mob. Celebrities have, let's just say, they have this thing where they are so far up their own rear ends that, quite frankly, they only care about themselves. And, of course, after a while of getting rampant amounts of praise, they probably would only care about themselves, and they would probably think to themselves, maybe I really truly am that good. But then they start to doubt things, and then after a while, they suddenly start becoming weaker and weaker and weaker. The mask begins to slip. But once again, like I said before, we got to talk about what it is that's causing this little thing that Drea De Matteo said earlier. Now, really quick, I want to say this right before I go any further. Okay? Speaking of Drea De Matteo. Drea De Matteo, Adriana, was kind of if you guys remember The Sopranos, she was kind of a sympathetic character. I was very, very sympathetic towards her. As a matter of fact, The Sopranos is still one of my favorite shows, one of the best ones ever made. Breaking Bad is right up there. The first 5 or 6 seasons of The Walking Dead. Outside of that, there's not really a whole lot good on television. And, of course, you heard Jerry Seinfeld talk earlier about sitcoms. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, when the hell are sitcoms going to come up in this video? And let me just go ahead and say this. There's really nothing to discuss when it comes to television sitcoms. They haven't been a thing for a very long time, but also to go on top of this, they haven't been good. They haven't been funny for a while either. I remember coming up in the... well, not coming up, but actually growing up in the early 90s. And, of course, you had The Cosby Show. You had Martin. You had a lot of shows that, of course, were predominantly black, of course, in nature. They were all very, very funny. You also had some pretty good white shows or shows that focus on white families, like, for example, Home Improvement, which would air, was kind of like the running type show that competed with Seinfeld. Seinfeld, by the way, the show about nothing. It was always a mainstay in my house, especially from about 1997 to about 2001, even the reruns, even after the show came off the air. And, of course, it's still watched by members of my own family. And it's more or less just entertainment. But the fact of the matter is that television has not been the same for a while. And, of course, you get to the topic of Steve Harvey, who also, for about 2 minutes, basically went off on this entire situation that we know of, which is called political correctness. Let me go ahead and run this, and then we shall get to what exactly is going on and what I think is really and truly happening in Hollywood, which, quite frankly, is not what I think is happening, but I'm pretty sure what we all know what's happening. But once again, we need to come out here and discuss it to see if something can be salvaged. But let's view this.
What's your take on all this stuff facing comedians today, cancel culture, and the censorship going on with comedians?
Well, the cancel culture and political correctness has killed comedy. It's killed it. Comedy used to be a therapeutic place to go, man. It used to be a place where people could go and laugh at the absurd. They could go and laugh at themselves. They could go laugh at the different takes that comedians had on different subjects. Well, now we live in a society where you have to now agree with everything everybody says, and you have to agree with everything everybody does, or you're considered politically incorrect, and now you have to go. Well, I'm not that guy. I'm sorry, man. Listen to me. If you choose a certain lifestyle that's not like mine, I'm absolutely cool with that. But when you ask me about it, I have the right to tell you my angle on it. And if I don't agree with it, man, why I got to be the one in the wrong? Why you got to take my show from me? Look, if you want to do or be whatever you want to do or be, Steve Harvey's cool with everybody choosing the lifestyle you want. But don't come to me and ask me my opinion of the lifestyle. And then when I tell you I don't agree with it for me, now there's something wrong with me. And I think we've done this to everybody now, not just comedians. I don't have to agree with your lifestyle, man. If that's what you want to do, cool. But why do I have to agree with it? And if I don't, I'm canceled. I'm in trouble. You take my show, take my career. No, man, no. And I think we've gotten so politically correct that we have now stopped people from having the freedom to think how they want to think. You can't even think a wrong thought anymore. And it's not that it's wrong, it's just that it's not your take. Look, man, I'm all for everybody. Man, live your life if that's how you want to do it. But once you come over here and I tell you what mine is, you can't get mad at me.
What it is that the current leftist mob, you have to literally accept what it is that they say. You have to literally accept everything. You have no choice but to do that. Now, normally in the world of classical liberalism, what would be is just let it be, live and let live, which is kind of strange too, how it is that these classical liberals are also very, very pro-abortion. And then again, at the same time, that they view a child as a clump of cells. The point is this right here. They kind of created their own little nightmare. Bill Maher is a great example. I've been saying it for a long time, and I've done a lot of videos on Bill Maher, but you're never going to hear me actually defend him unless he's like almost perfect with a take. Bill Maher fashions himself as a comedian, but for many, many years, he's been pushing the secular agenda, been pushing the atheist nonsense, which of course I don't agree with, but I'm not going to beat him up for it because, you know, I'm not going to sit here and try to, let's just say, go out of my way to be preachy or anything, especially when it comes to the topic of religion. I'll just pray for you. But the point is this right here. For a very, very long time, Bill Maher helped push the agenda. In Jerry Seinfeld's case, he never really and truly got overtly political. He would have a couple of takes here and there. And the same thing with Steve Harvey. Drea De Matteo, I haven't really heard her get political till recently. So maybe what Drea De Matteo is saying, I keep saying De Matteo, but still, I'll just start calling her Adriana. It makes you wonder if there is an actual undercurrent in that actual city. So let me go and give you my initial thoughts. And then, of course, after we get the rest of the media video, I'll go ahead and give you my full conclusion. I think what's going on in Hollywood, and we've heard people the likes of, say, Tim Pool, for example, who know a lot of quote-unquote D-list actors. And by the way, I'm not doing this to make fun of D-list actors. We obviously have voice actors and actors who do stuff like, say, video games, for example. A good example of what I mean by video games or video game characters or video game actors. My thinking is that's the ones that don't get much screen time are probably the ones that secretly walk in there and vote third party or vote Republican or are scared to say anything. But then we get to the quote-unquote A-list actors. Not just A-list actors, but A-list personalities. Let's just kind of run through the list here. And I had to kind of write this down. Just a few examples. Howard Stern. He recently did an interview with Joe Biden. Howard Stern at one point in time used to be on his knees gargling the entrails of Donald Trump at one point in time. I remember Howard Stern very, very well because even though he did his radio show, which, by the way, I couldn't really listen to when I was a kid, at some point in time, the radio show turned into the TV show, which was still heard on the radio, with his co-host, Robin Givens. And, of course, they did it on the Entertainment Network. He's the shock jock. He said extremely offensive things. Some of the things that he said, quite frankly, are irreprehensible even to this day. But still, though, to see him basically turn completely against the First Amendment and become what he has become today is almost a daggone joke. Oh, who else? Oh, that's right. I'm showing you guys some stuff right here, and you're going to see it periodically because of the copyright situation of Ricky Gervais at the Oscars. A lot of people forget that Ricky Gervais at the Oscars did that particular night because of...
was fired from the Oscars because of some offensive tweets.
That's right. Kevin Hart was supposed to be the host of the Oscars that night. Kevin Hart made some jokes, of course. He put them out there on Twitter. They had been out in like 2010, 11, and 12 time frame. And people dug him up right around the time that he did the Oscars, making you wonder why in the hell somebody would go back that damn far to look for some tweets about a certain community. And people obviously got pissed off and they demanded that Kevin Hart not be the host of the Oscars. Kevin Hart comes out eventually, and what does he do? He says, I'm not going to apologize. And then they remove him. Then he apologizes, and then they turn right back around and don't give him back the gig. It's almost like the apology is nothing more than a humiliation ritual. It's one of the reasons why it is that I believe you should just stand up to the mob or not bow down. They're going to attack you regardless. Just go ahead and stand on your principles. If you just give it a few weeks, people will just eventually get over it. But of course, when you bow, they have power over you, and they will always hold it over you, and they will always go out of their way to continue to bring you down. I want to say Jerry Seinfeld has also apologized to the mob. I'm not sure he has, but I'm pretty sure at some point in time he's gotten in trouble with these people. I'm just saying. By the way, speaking of the Academy Awards that night, I'm still rolling some of the footage of that, and the reason why I'm rolling some of the footage of that is because, quite frankly, it was absolutely hilarious to see the celebrity reactions when Ricky Gervais basically came out and trolled these people for about 10 minutes. And of course, we're also never going to forget this line here.
Platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and off, okay?
Almost felt as if that night, which by the way, it went completely viral, it's almost as if that night he was trolling every single person in that room and basically telling them, I know all the secrets, I know everything, every little disgusting thing that you've done. He was bringing up the P word, all that crap there, all the movies running, all that type of stuff. It's almost like he was trolling the entire room that night and letting them know, there's dirt on you, and I know the type of crap you've had to do to get the role. You see, I think a lot of these people's roles are tied up in the actual pushing of the agenda. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Anybody with half a brain can look at the situation and say, well, there's a reason why it is that a lot of these people are acting all woke. Well, something you got to consider is that social media kind of destroyed Hollywood. It kind of sort of did because a lot of actors will throw out there very, very dumb opinions, very, very uneducated opinions, very, very unenlightened opinions about what's going on. Most of them, of course, pander to the left because obviously they believe that, Hollywood, Tinseltown, is full of a bunch of leftists, which it is. But I think it's really more a bunch of degenerates. And I think that at the end of the day, a lot of these degenerates toe the woke line. Well, multiple reasons why. Could include being paid to toe the woke line. Also, we control your next movie, your next role. Most directors, of course, are on the left. Also, to go on top of that, you've also got not just that there, but you've also got other things that we could talk about in other videos that I'm not allowed to talk about for the sake of this video here. I'm pretty sure you guys are thinking about the term rituals, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of sin and degeneracy that's going on in Hollywood that, quite frankly, these people don't want out in the open. It's also funny to me how it was that he brought up the guy with the E in his name and Steen. It's also very, very odd how it was that when Trump got elected, these people right here flipped out the hardest. It's almost as if to say that the former president, who, by the way, was also a celebrity himself, has got dirt on just about anybody and everybody. The other day, Ryan Garcia was at Mar-a-Lago, and he endorsed Donald Trump for president. Of course, I'm showing you guys this clip now. And I stepped into the comment section and reminded people that Trump at one point in time during the 1980s, and even to this day, is very, very tight with Mike Tyson. He's also very, very tight with Dana White. The 1980s, Donald Trump's properties, especially Trump Taj Mahal going into the 90s, hosted several boxing events, several MMA events, several WWE events. The man was obviously very, very well connected. You don't think for 2 seconds he did not know these people? It almost reminds me of that time that Dave Chappelle went on Saturday Night Live, and I don't know. The truth always comes out of the mouth of a comedian. That's what I think really and truly happened. But who are some other examples? Who are some other examples of these people? Oh, that's right, Shane Gillis, the guy who does the Trump impersonations. He was fired off Saturday Night Live, then they brought him back. Saturday Night Live, by the way, is an absolute joke. I talked about Howard Stern earlier and how big of a joke he was. And, of course, all the other people who've been canceled or all the other people who've basically had to bow before the mob. But the one thing that really is always stuck in my craw, and I'm going to go ahead and say this right here, and I'm going to go ahead and touch on it now, even though I want to do a much, much larger video at a later date, even though Imp Lemon did an extremely, very, very, very well-informed video on this individual, is Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel is obviously bought and paid for to toe the woke line. Never mind his blackface. Never mind the man show. Never mind all the on-the-street videos where he's actually grabbing women's behinds. And, of course, the one where he basically says, Uncle Jimmy will go to prison if your age is not there. I don't think I have to go through Jimmy Kimmel. I just don't think I have to. The fact of the matter is someone like Jimmy Kimmel, the more and more and more you look at, the more and more obvious it becomes. He's like the only one that's allowed to speak. James Corden, who, by the way, I never really and truly liked or never really and truly cared for, he was forced to go through a good old-fashioned struggle session after some things came out about him, a public struggle session. Craig Ferguson, haven't seen him in a long time. But, of course, the one name that always, and I mean the one name that always makes me think about late-night TV is Jay Leno. You see, they got Jay Leno a long time ago. Leno made a bunch of jokes about North Korea, talked about dogs and stuff, and of course, he eventually had to come out and apologize for all the Asian jokes that he told. Comedy is subjective, meaning that what you find funny is what you find, even if it's very, very dark or sick. If you find it funny, you find it funny. Can't help it. My sense of humor is kind of weird. Just going to go ahead and just kind of let you guys know that sometimes I think that dark comedy is absolutely hilarious. But then again, at the same time, if I go to Netflix and I pull up Richard Pryor or any old Eddie Murphy comedy, I just bust out laughing. Can't help it. I guess it's the culture I was raised around. The thing about Jay Leno, though, was that Jay Leno today would not be towing the woke line. Or maybe they might would force him to, but he would find ways around it. His Fruitcake Lady segments were hilarious. His monologues were always hilarious. And he was one of the only late-night TV hosts that was actually willing to attack Barack Obama. Barack Obama, by the way, was probably the most fickle president we ever had in American history. If he got criticized by the media, he would flip the hell out. He would go absolutely insane. He was also our laziest president, too. The guy wouldn't get up in the morning until 9 o'clock. I mean, he'd go to work. A lot of people are sitting here thinking to themselves, was Obama who's really and truly controlling everything? Dude, if you actually knew the Obama administration and MO and how smug he was, you would know that he does not have his hands on anything. It's the people that he's trained who's got their hands on it. He's not a very, very good supervisor. That right there is the real truth about the current situation that we're in. Going back to what I was saying about Leno. Leno was not renewed. Makes you wonder why. Here's my thoughts. Jerry Seinfeld, he's correct. Woke political cancel culture, political correctness has destroyed comedy. The rampant judgmental nature of the radical left, which, by the way, has created comedians like, say, Hannah Gatsby, who is absolutely horrible. And, of course, to go on top of that, you've got all the other crazy stuff that comes out. And the very, very bad sitcoms that are on television. Yeah, it makes you wonder if maybe Razor Fist was correct. It's not get woke, go broke. It's actually get broke, then go woke. You see, when you run out of ideas, after a while, you start scraping the barrel for whatever you can. So you look for whatever shock humor you can. But then you realize there's somebody pushing an agenda that matches the actual shock humor. So because you need that extra cash, that extra dough, that little extra notoriety, you've got no problem doing it. You basically sell your soul at that moment in time. That's pretty much what it is. We'll be doing more videos on that. But there is one more thing that I need to cover before I close this video. That is, let's go back to the past one more time. I mentioned Leno just now. Well, Leno was pretty much told he couldn't come back. It was 2015, 2016 time frame. That was it. Well, it was actually 2015, 2016 time frame when the quote-unquote woke mind virus started to get to students. And, of course, you get those protests where you get people screaming and hollering about you being white and we need safe spaces, all that stuff there. That's what it actually picked up. But like I said before, you never bow to the mob. The best person out there, the best person when it comes to dealing with the radical left, at least as far as the comedic world is concerned, is Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle continues to tell his jokes over and over and over again. The more and more he tells them, the more and more hilarious I find them to be. I used to not think Chappelle was that funny, but then again, at the same time, Chappelle's show was quite frankly wonderful. It was beautiful. You couldn't have it today, but then again, I wish he would also bring it back. The fact of the matter is that Dave Chappelle knows that the best thing you can do when facing the woke mob and political correctness crowd is to simply troll them. That right there is how you really and truly beat these people. You troll these people out of existence until they either A, look at themselves in the mirror and choose to make a change. In some cases, it actually works. We've actually seen some conversion here and there. But the fact of the matter is this right here. Trolling the mob and not bowing to the mob is the best way to beat the woke mob, because if you don't do that, at the end of the day, they realize that they're completely and totally insignificant. And when these people are completely and totally insignificant, they quite frankly have no power, not over you. But they do have power over Hollywood, because Hollywood, quite frankly, is a den of snakes and a den of weak people who, quite frankly, would never stand up on their own or stand up to the mob, because they realize that the viewership audience that they leaned into is not really and truly their actual viewership audience. I'm going to leave one more thing with you. Now, I wanted to say this after that clip of Seinfeld, because I wanted to go ahead and kind of bring this up, because guess what? There's a difference between the two. So bear with me just for one quick second. Shortly after I played that long Seinfeld clip, the one that was about 1 minute, 21 seconds, I talked about the topic of script. Scripts have to get approved. And it's really, really funny, too, because when I decided to do this video, I had forgotten that one of the videos that was in my YouTube feed was a documentary that I had watched the previous night. I don't do content on this, but I may explore it on one of the many accounts or channels that I've created to actually do something with. I want to talk about the topic of professional wrestling. It's a work, and of course how it is that they're using the current WWE wrestling model, the old model, to create all the tension that they're creating now. And one of the things that I wanted to mention was how it was that the company WCW died. Well, watching that documentary last night, the former head, Eric Bischoff, was basically saying that when the AOL Time Warner merger happened, he had to submit his scripts and he had to submit his shows and the ideas for a show a week before the show aired live on a Monday night or live on a Thursday night, because it was Monday Nitro and also WCW Thunder. Once the corporate overlords started getting involved with the scripts, next thing you know, what ends up happening is that while those scripts are, in fact, of course, being submitted, they get to control it. If your script does not meet our needs, then guess what happens? You don't get your product aired. So you have to make adjustments. Or at some point in time, you have to make adjustments according to what the corporate overlords want. So it's very, very possible now that I mentioned this, that Drea De Matteo could be, in fact, correct. Maybe there are a lot of D and C and B list actors, maybe even a few A-listers who, quite frankly, are just chameleons, and they have to keep their mouth shut and toe the woke line and say what the hell the corporate overlords want them to say, because if they don't do what the corporate overlords tell them to do, then they don't get a job. I tell you to look at the DCEU or the DCCU to actually see that. So I'm probably going to leave this video from Comic Historian in the description box for you guys to actually look at. By the way, he's also got veteran-owned products through his channel. I advise you guys to go check him out, one vet to another. The point is this right here. Once the corporate overlords get in charge and they start actually checking the scripts, and I highly advise you guys check out that video because that happened to the DCEU, you'll start to notice that obviously the agenda is going to be implanted. So it's very, very possible that no, it's not really the actors in this case. It's more likely actually woke Hollywood itself, meaning the actual executives that are putting this crap in here. I don't know if you guys noticed it or not, but Warner Brothers recently said they were dropping woke. Woke's not making them any money. Bob Iger, on the other hand, he recently came out and said that Disney needed to get away from woke too. But of course, they've still got a lot of movies and a lot of projects to come out. So obviously, wokeness is going to stay for at least the next year or two, which makes me wonder what's going to happen after they choose to drop the woke agenda, which they may or may not drop. But that right there is another topic for another day. With that right there being said, guys, please leave your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say. Please tell me where I'm right or where I'm wrong at. This is going to be the only video to be released on Tuesday. There is another video that's going to be coming out, but on Wednesday that I'm making today about the situation with the military. It's normally a video that I would make on Gear Issue 33, but I want to talk about recruiting one more time. I'm going to go ahead and try to pump out as many videos as I can today for the week itself, because there's a lot of topics that, quite frankly, need to be discussed that I wanted to do top videos on. So make sure you guys stick around throughout the week. With that right there being said, please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.